Holiday tips and fun facts from Paul, Kristen, and Dexter at Total Wine & More.
There's something celebratory about Bubbles. Our ridiculous selection of champagne and sparkling wines will make the holidays pop.
Who couldn't use a friendly wine elf? I can help you find the perfect bottle at just the right price.
Deep frying a turkey this year? A rich and earthy Chateau Neuf de Pop would make an interesting pairing.
Whether you're entertaining or just bringing the wine, we'd love to share our always low prices and ridiculous selection with you this holiday. Now offering same-day delivery at TotalWine.com. Cheers!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast. Damn you, Hollywood. And here's your host. It's Christmas time in Hollis, Queens. Robert Winfree is cooking dinner and collard greens.
Yeah, that doesn't work. You didn't think that one through, did you?
Why? Well, I mean...
I appreciate the effort, but you're going to have to chalk that one up to a loss.
Does anyone here actually eat collard greens?
Mom, okay, the line is, Mom's cooking, shit. Mom's cooking...
Mom's cooking shit. Oh, sounds like my Thanksgiving.
Okay, it's Christmas time in Hollis, Queens. Mom's cooking dinner. Yeah, Mom's cooking dinner and collard greens. Instead of Mom, I said Robert Winfree. What doesn't work about that?
It just doesn't work.
I should have gone with Black Santa for you. Mom, it's Santa, and he's black. Ho, 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 children. From the same album, by the way. There's a whole like Profile Presents Christmas rap that the original Christmas in Hollis came from, and on that there's this whole song about Black Santa. I'm gonna go with that.
I'll stick with Weird Al Yankovic's "The Night Santa Went Crazy."
Right.
I played that and the Christmas at Ground Zero last year while we were putting up ornaments on the tree, and my wife was like, "This is the worst song ever. Why would you play this as we're putting up Christmas ornaments?" I'm like, "This is an amazing Christmas carol."
Oh, okay. The Night Santa Went Crazy is the best.
At least it's not Dominic the Christmas Donkey.
Shut your mouth.
I'm still not convinced that's actually a thing.
First of all, why do you hate Italians, both of you? I don't understand it.
I don't have anything against the... I'm not going to say it.
Did you almost just say I don't have anything against WAPs?
Yep.
Robert, we are barely hanging on to the few listeners we still have.
When did you start using ethnic slurs? When did that start?
That's one that's like... It has been out of fashion for so long that I don't feel an innate aversion to its existence the way I do with other slurs.
Did you recently start watching like a bunch of Scorsese films and be like, you know what's funny? Making fun of Italians. Hey, you wops. You greasy wops. What's wrong with you?
Hold on. I would never have said greasy, okay? No.
Oh, that's the lie.
No. Okay.
I just wouldn't have, but I'm also kind of like remembering that Roddy Piper promo in my head from Madison Square Garden.
You're going to have to be a little more specific.
Oh, I was coming in and I just got this flat tire because everything was just wop, 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 wop when I was driving in.
Oh, Roddy.
Because Roddy Piper was the man.
His daughter, Teal Piper, on the season finale of WoW Season 2 was freaking hilarious, by the way.
Wait, what's her first name?
Teal.
As in the color?
Correct. She was interviewing Steffi Slays, and she said something to the effect of, Steffi, is there anyone you can beat when they're actually well? And Steffi was like, all right, that's it. It just like stormed off. It was great. Because she was insinuating that the only reason why Steffi Slays was able to win her first match was because her opponent was sick. And this was a bit they did for about 5 minutes.
All right, moving on to our actual show.
Yes,
Thank you for sticking with us through our stupidity.
Yes, sir.
Every time I think we can't go any lower on these openings, and yet
we
find a way.
I like how we started with Christmas in Hollis by Run DMC. Rob immediately goes to slurring Italians. I'm not really sure how that connects, but it connected for some odd reason. All right, now we can start.
I should have refrained from referencing Dominic the Christmas donkey.
Which is, again, not a thing. It's a figment of Mark's imagination. You are the only person I have ever heard reference it, Mark.
What about that Family Guy reference?
Yeah.
I don't think I heard the Family Guy reference.
I will find it and I will send it to you, and I'll send it in the Boogie Nights chat so that certain members of that particular chat could then say, it all sucks and should be burned to the ground. Will you please start the show already?
All right. If you stuck with us this long, hopefully we got all this crap out of the way.
And we apologize. Those who have been responsible for these jokes have been sacked.
And we are sorry.
Yeah. And next week, those responsible for the sacking of us will be sacked.
Get on with it!
Someone else knows Monty Python.
Well, we all got it.
Oh, God. Look, I've had like 3 different times today. I've tried to pitch... like a line to then be continued at somebody and just failed miserably. And it's been so it's nice to have a few kind of, be able to hit a few back and forth. All right, tonight on Damn You Hollywood, I'm Robert Winfree. That's Mark Radulich, he of the Delusional Donkey. And from Honeysuckle
Your resident WAP, everybody.
Half.
That's right.
And from Honeysuckle Rose Creations, we have somehow not yet scared her off, Alexis Hejna.
I don't get paid enough to do this.
I don't get paid enough to do this. Oh, God. And tonight on Damn You Hollywood, we are tackling the Rian Johnson written and directed whodunit mystery movie Knives Out.
If you don't know who Rian Johnson is, he ruined your Star Wars movie. Assholes.
You know what? I'm going to say this before we actually talk about this movie proper. To all you bitchy Star Wars fans, thank you. Because now a talented director and creator of film is not tied to your godforsaken shithole of a franchise.
Yeah.
Side note, if you want to hear more about us talking about Star Wars fans, go check out the Screaming Boy podcast, Toxic Fandoms. Plug.
Yep. You can also listen to our review of Star Wars The Last Jedi from last year, 2 years ago, when Mark and I had just a lot of praise for the movie and then got to the critical analysis and went, why are all these people screaming like their pants are on fire? Well, again, if Rian Johnson not being involved in that franchise means he can make movies like this, and again, your whiny fan base doesn't want interesting, thoughtful films or direction and is just going to scream about everything no matter what they do, you can have J.J. Abrams, who's perfectly qualified to make mediocre fan service, which is apparently all you want.
Or Jon Favreau, who's actually giving us something amazing.
I haven't seen them.
Take that, 2 out of 3 guys from Midnight's Edge. Okay, now you can go on.
I haven't seen The Mandalorian yet, so I can't comment on it at the moment.
Oh my God. I am...
Damn it, Mark. I don't do this.
Go ahead.
I was saying, side note, apparently Rian Johnson's being approached to direct an episode of The Mandalorian.
Good.
I haven't watched it yet. We're 4 episodes into this thing, and I'm already sick of Baby Yoda. I hate the internet and everybody on it.
Did you see my instead of an elf on a shelf picture I made?
Yes, I did.
I didn't come up with it. Somebody said they wanted to see it. It took me less than 10 minutes in Photoshop to make it.
Now, the other one I saw floating around was The Mandalorian on a DeLorean.
DeLorean, yeah, like that one.
Yes. Actually, my favorite elf on the shelf has been the elf turned to like candy dust and Thanos standing over him with the just that perfect.
God, if only that had been the last one. It really would have been nice.
I still like the one that came out 2 years ago of the elf frozen in a block of ice with an Elsa doll standing next to it.
That wasn't bad. All right, anyway. dumping on the Star Wars fandom aside, because I'll get back to it when we talk about Rise of Skywalker, I'm sure. That brings us to this movie. Now, I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit here because I wanted this on the schedule.
That was two of us. I voted for this too.
Yeah. Okay, yes. Co-signed by Alexis. Well, Mark went, no, I've been outvoted. This is why democracy sucks. I'm just kidding. Mark owns 51% of the voting shares. This is not a democracy.
In my defense, because nobody will defend me, I wanted to see this movie. I didn't feel the need to review it, but I knew I was going to go see it. But I will tell you that because these fine people, Robert Winfree and Alexis Hejna of Honeysuckle Rose Creations, demanded we talk about this, I did not get to see Queen and Slim. God damn it.
Oh, boo-hoo.
Hashtag black folks.
You missed nothing of value.
You don't know
that this show is run by middle-aged white people.
Oh, if you love middle-aged white people, you should have seen Jesse and I talking about the Wu-Tang Clan twice. It's perfect.
I'm not even middle-aged yet. I'm getting there, though. All right. Anyway, I wanted this one on the schedule, and it is. And I'm now deeply scared for the next 6 weeks because 2 weeks ago we reviewed Ford versus Ferrari, which was a great movie and a lot of fun. And Mark and I talked about it. We had a good time. This week, Knives Out, which I'll spoil my feelings on it. Really, really good movie. Probably the most fun I've had in a theater in a long time. And I'm happy to talk about it. That never happens to me on this show consecutively.
Yeah, usually you find something to complain about. Even the best movies we see, you're usually the one that says, well, and you find something negative to mention.
Yeah, there's always stuff to critique. I try to be at least semi-constructive about it rather than just everything sucks.
That's okay. In 2 weeks you have to do Jumanji 3 and then Star Wars, so...
Yeah, you see, that's why I'm afraid. I had it good for 2 shows in a row. Mm-hmm. That never happens to me. Something bad is going to happen in the very near future. I can feel it.
The Rise of Skywalker is going to be 2 hours of Kathleen Kennedy begging for people to love her.
Again, how do we keep going back to talking about Star Wars on this show?
Because Mark's a fan, I'm not. It's an easy they're an easy bunch to. The Star Wars fan base is an easy one to provoke.
Oh, in defense of talking about it, Ryan Johnson is the one that wrote and directed Knives Out, so it's at least relevant from that standpoint because he caught so much shit for The Last Jedi. And then he jumped over to this project, and this turned out to be phenomenal. So, it was worth talking about.
Again, Star Wars fans, if you don't want talented directors with interesting stuff to do in a movie on touching your precious franchise, and you just want fan service because you have rose-colored glasses for product that wasn't all that good to begin with, hey, go live in your fantasy land. Fair enough. I'll take this. All right. I will warn everyone, I always warn people about my plot synopses, not just because they suck, but also because they're coming, and if you think the plot is a reason you're going to be interested in seeing the movie, this is your chance to pause, wait, whatever, and avoid being told about it. I don't care that much about spoilers 90% of the time because it does not, the majority of the time, it does not impact at all my ability to enjoy the movie. Here, however, because this is a classic whodunit style of story, the narrative is kind of important, so you are forewarned. If you haven't seen it yet, I would encourage you to see it before you listen to the synopsis. All right, moving on. Knives Out, again, this is a classic whodunit style of murder/suicide mystery.
Agatha Christie would have been impressed.
Almost certainly, and then she would have tried to squash it from ever being released. Our primary cast of characters is is there an R or not in there? There's a few different people who pronounced it differently, and I just want to make sure I have the... Yeah, there is an R. Okay. Is the Thromby family, which consists of Jamie Lee Curtis, who is the oldest daughter of... this is a badly laid out list here I have. I apologize. Christopher Plummer as Harlan Thromby, who's a mystery novelist. He's the one who's started one of the best-selling mystery novelists in the world, has amassed a lot of money.
And he didn't have to be digitally edited in over Kevin Spacey this time.
Which is nice. Well, look, they also just said, hey, he's old. We'll acknowledge it, and we'll, make the movie with that in mind. Anyway, so there's him. There's his daughter, Jamie Lee Curtis. Her husband, Don Johnson. Toni Collette, his daughter-in-law by his second son. Michael Shannon, his youngest son. And, let me see, there's Toni Collette's daughter, Meg.
Shannon's son. Or no, that's Walton Donna's. That's Jamie Lee Curtis' son, right?
Yeah, Chris Evans, who we are introduced to a little bit later in the narrative. There's one other one. I mentioned Meg. There's another kid, another grandson of Harlan's who has very little. Actually, this would be great grandson, wouldn't it? No, just grandson.
Who's always on his phone.
Always on his phone. Has like 3 lines in the entire movie.
He's exhausted after killing a clown.
I don't blame him.
Oh, that's right. That's where I knew him from.
Yeah, the actor in question is the one who plays the child version of Bill Denebrough in It Chapter 1 and 2.
Kid's a good actor. He is.
Yeah, I have no problems. None of the performances in this movie kind of catch me off guard. Anyway, the big kind of... Oh, and, sorry, I forgot... I did not recognize this actress. Ana de Armas, who plays the nurse and caretaker of Harlan. And again, the big setup is Harlan is found with his throat slit in an apparent suicide in his house, and
right after his 85th birthday.
Yep. And the resulting hoopla all of the stuff that stems from this comes from that incident. This movie, I have to talk a little bit about craft here, and I'll be very brief with this. Just because a normal whodunit would have spent the entire movie getting to the reveal that we, the audience, get after about 30 minutes. And that's how Harlan died. We know almost immediately. He believes he is, and I say believes, this is going to get to the end here, but what we see is his nurse and him going through their nightly routine, and she believes that that she swapped his medication, giving him 100 milligrams of morphine instead of the 3 that would just kind of help him with injuries and sleep, instead of the 100 milligrams of his normal medication. For those unaware, 100 milligrams of morphine is fatal. Rather quickly, actually. That's a lot. And he decides that he likes Marta. She's like the only, because his family, as will become very apparent, are a bunch of snarky vultures with very, very few, if any, redeeming qualities. And he helps her frame what's going on with him as a suicide. He tells her, how to leave the house, how to make sure everyone sees her leaving, how to sneak back in, give her a bit of an alibi, pretend he's alive longer than he will be. And the bulk of this movie is not us trying to unravel the mystery, but rather us trying to see if she'll be able to get away with it. And again, there's no ill intent here, and there is a big reveal because there is an actual whodunit going on. And his thought is, if I commit suicide, it will look like suicide. I'm an old man. The reading of my will and the dispersion of my estate will go on as I planned. And a lot more of the plot deals with what he's been trying to set up with his estate, because he'd slowly been cutting the rest of his family out of his will.
Oh, we also have that Marta's mother is, I don't know if they say still an illegal immigrant, but she came here undocumented. I'm wondering if Marta may have been like a dreamer, child, so to speak.
Yeah,
she gets referred to as an anchor baby at one point.
I'm not going to use that term. I refuse to use the term.
I would if I thought it applied. I don't think she is an anchor baby. I think that was just kind of a insult thrown by that particular character in her way, rather than an accurate one.
To be clear, I'm quoting a character. I'm not calling her an anchor baby. There's a character. Okay. No,
I brought it up because Harlan does mention that even if it is investigated and it is revealed that Marta's, poisoning him was an accident, the investigation will still go on and reveal that her mother, and there's a good chance she'll be deported. And Harlan does not want that for Marta's family.
Yeah. And one of my favorite running gags from this movie is actually that none of them know what country her family's from.
Yeah, she gets called quite a few of them. I laughed at that because that's such a me gimmick, or mispronouncing names, or like some, just not remembering a detail like that, so I just make it up, and it's different every time. So whenever they did it, I laughed pretty hard.
Yeah, she's the first time we hear it, she's referenced as being Ecuadorian. Another one says Uruguayan.
One says Brazilian.
Which is the most wrong that you could possibly be.
I thought I heard Paraguay at one point. I don't know. I was laughing.
Yeah,
it doesn't help that they're saying the countries with those really pretentious, I'm white, but I'm going to try to use a Spanish accent. So they're just garbling their vowels.
Look, if you want to say Uruguay instead of Uruguay, then fine, you can say it that way. Again, that's how I kind of try to say it. But it's one of my favorite ongoing gags. Anyway, the wrinkle in the ointment here, as far as this apparent suicide goes, and again, we are shown it is completely a suicide. The wrinkle that comes up is there's a somewhat famous private detective who was hired to investigate this thing anonymously, and which is our introduction to Daniel Craig's character of Benoit Blanc.
Who I swear to God is just the human version of the hyperspace chicken lawyer from Futurama.
I'm still not entirely sure what accent he was going for.
Very Kentucky Fried Southern.
Well, hang on.
Very Foghorn Leghorn.
Because there's parts when it is very much Kentucky. There's other parts, especially when he says his own name, that dips more towards Louisiana. And given his name, that's kind of more the impression I get is that because he doesn't use a Cajun accent. But there is like a Louisiana French Cajun styling to how he talks a little bit. That kind of slips in on occasion. And I know at the end, Chris Evans refers to him as mentions the Kentucky one, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not entirely sure that's what he was going for necessarily. But anyway,
well,
I just did anyone see Logan Lucky?
No.
Oh, because he does I haven't seen either, but this is apparently Daniel Craig's second time doing a Southern American accent. And I haven't seen Logan Lucky, so I just walked out thinking, can anyone tell me if the accent was any better? Because I love Daniel Craig. I can't wait to see the new James Bond film. But sweet Jesus, that was not his best performance with an accent. It was so hilariously bad.
So here's my thought here.
I know people that talk like that.
I got the impression that it was Louisiana. I think he was going for like a French Cajun kind of a thing, and then his last name is Blanc. I don't know. Those to me were kind of context clues that this might have been a Louisiana Southern accent.
Again, I think that's kind of what the character image was, but his accent is very much... It's really kind of not on... If you've ever heard Cajun people talk, he's not really Cajun.
Well, that's the problem. Like, he drifts between Alabama Southern and Louisiana Southern.
Yeah, it does. Again, it does wander a bit, but I mean, in fairness to Craig, accents are hard in general, and nailing the non-stereotypical Cajun accent can be a really difficult thing to do. To begin with. The
other thought I had was how much of that was done for effect as part of the character.
Yeah, like he's playing it up to kind of get a reaction out of people.
Yes.
Or maybe Rian Johnson told him to play it up.
Either way, like I got the feeling that it wasn't Daniel Craig purposely doing a bad accent, that it was done purposefully to put people off guard. That it's a part of the process for him.
Yeah, like the character himself deliberately plays up some of his idiosyncrasies in order to off-balance people and get more information out of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's been called in to investigate this and is consulting with the police department on this, and we find out that Marta has a physical reaction to lying. She vomits if she tells a lie, which is hilarious and played that way on occasion. And we start again. What we slowly kind of get revealed is some of the inter-family dynamics. Don Johnson is cheating on Jamie Lee Curtis, who's crafted their marriage in such a way that if they divorce, he gets nothing. Like, even if I think it's implied that the terms of the prenuptial agreement they signed kept her in full control of all of her assets, regardless of whatever else happens. We know that Harlan had cut off Ransom, who is just a ne'er-do-well playboy. Toni Collette's character has been stealing money from Harlan by claiming by basically having him send two different tuition payments to her daughter Meg's school, but one of them goes directly to her, and he's somewhat understandably not happy about this. His son Walt, Michael Shannon, was in charge of his publishing house, and we discover was fired from that position.
I do love it. It's like, well, he's a self-made man too. He runs a publishing company, and like he publishes Dad's books. That's it.
I loved when he said that to Jamie Lee Curtis, and she goes, "Are you trying to bait me, detective?" I wanted him to go, "Yes." Obviously. We loosely are again. Walt's son is the guy who's always on his phone. His wife is kind of extremely waspish.
Not really a character. She has I think maybe 5 lines in the whole movie.
Yeah, she's barely an afterthought. And again, this is kind of our setup. And since we know kind of what Marta is trying to get away with, and that there was, no real ill intent or anything, there's some genuinely great sequences where she's kind of trying to steer the investigation one way or the other. The big wrinkle comes when Ransom, Chris Evans, shows up and is able to somewhat quickly get Marta to tell him everything about how Harlan actually died.
Well, you're missing the important reveal of what happened before that.
Which
the reading
one?
Of the reading of
the
will.
Oh, yes. At the reading of the will, it is revealed that Harlan leaves everything to Marta: the house, the publishing company, all of his cash assets, his investments. She gets all of it. The family freaks out, like you. In all fairness, like you would. Ransom is able to kind of get her to tell him what actually happened to Harlan. he goes along with his response to all this is, okay, I will help you tie up these last couple of loose ends. You get to keep everything, and then give me my share of the inheritance, and we'll both be scot-free. Marta, not really seeing much of an alternative at the moment, goes along with this. She, right around that same time, gets a note from someone trying to blackmail her with intimating that this person has knowledge of her overdosing Harlan with morphine.
The blood toxicology reports.
Yeah. Which was the kind of last thing that was waiting on from the medical examiner. The medical examiner's office is burned down in an act of arson. When she does the police actually take Harlan. There's a few details we can get into more later because, again, this is a whodunit, so details are very important, but I don't want to go scene by scene here.
Yeah, if we do that, we're going to spend 2 hours just going over every single character. There's a lot of little, if you notice this, it comes back into play later. Yeah,
Harlan is taken in for some further questioning by the police.
You mean Ransom?
Yeah, Ransom. God, my mistake. Marta goes to meet the blackmailer and discovers another one of the housekeepers, a character Fran, who we've met a few times, who has been dosed with a lot of morphine. And she, being a good-hearted person, calls the police, calls an ambulance, gets her to the hospital, hoping to be there to save her life. She confesses everything to Blanc, who's put together a bunch of different pieces of it. Ransom also, while in custody, in for questioning, but I don't think it was ever in custody, apparently told them everything that Marta told him. And Marta's plan is to renounce the inheritance and throw herself on the mercy of the court, metaphorically.
There's a lot of talk about the what's it called, the Slayer defense or the
Slayer law.
Yeah, which says that if Marta is found guilty of killing Harlan, even as an accident, even if it's just a matter of civil court, she won't get a dime of the inheritance. So you get the rest of the family really pushing to hope that she did in fact kill Harlan, so they can get the money.
Yeah, that bit of legislation it's fairly standard at this point. Like, you can't be written into someone's will and then kill them for their money. There's legal precedent in place for that. So she prepares her big confession, but as she is starting to confess, Blanc actually reads the toxicology report, which they were able to discern was hidden in the house with Fran's stash of marijuana, and sees that, and he halts her, pulls her aside, and says, "No, you didn't. The toxicology report was normal. That little bit of information, combined with Blanc never knowing who hired him and trying to figure out what's actively going on here, this finally helps him put all the pieces together. He calls in Ransom and untangles the totality of at times a bizarrely intricate plot where Ransom had swapped the labels on the medication, on the vials of medication. Marta, just because she's a very good nurse, had somehow unconsciously still delivered the appropriate dosages.
She didn't realize it till she actually looked down and realized that the bottle in her hand said the wrong label.
Yeah, because the two liquids don't actually look identical. And so Harlan's entire plan, after learning he'd been cut out and that everything was going to Marta, Ransom, thank you. After he finds out from Harlan that he's being cut out of the will and that everything's going to Marta, he plans to frame her. He plans to kind of induce her into killing him, so that once she is revealed to be inheriting everything, she will be found guilty of, at a minimum, negligence. Disqualified from inheriting, everybody gets their own share, because in cases where the where a new instance of a will is rendered invalid, you default to the previous instance of said will, unless there is no will, in which case everything goes into. Never mind. You don't care about my knowledge about probate court and stuff like that.
For the record, I do love the scene where they're arguing about how she got the house, and like, you're giving our ancestral home, with the will reader's like, Harlan bought this in the 80s.
Yeah, no, that's actually right at the end. Ransom's like, no, you're not giving up our ancestral home, and Blanc goes, he bought this from a Pakistani in the 80s. What do you mean ancestral?
That's still a great joke.
It's even funnier because Ransom had just been so enjoying kind of stirring the pot. To see him be the one getting agitated over it was even better. Anyway, so he kind of points out some of the intricacies that we can get into in more detail, but it didn't work, again, in no small part because Marta is a very good nurse and wanted to just do the right thing as a human being when it came to what happened to Fran. Because if she'd left her to die, then at a minimum she's now guilty of gross negligence in the face of that, given her profession.
Which is what Ransom had pretty much hoped she would do.
Yeah. And Ransom makes a de facto confession after Marta leads him to believe that Fran is still alive. He confesses to most of the things, and that uses some with the logic that, you're going to get me on attempted murder and, petty arson, although, for the record, burning down the office of the state criminal medical examiner is not petty. That's a relatively hefty felony. But again, he's kind of mentioned, I have a really good lawyer. I still have I still have my own money saved up. I can get off relatively light, and then I'll be back. And then again, it's revealed that nope, Fran died, and what you confessed to was not attempted murder, but actual murder.
And we get a scene of Marta puking in his face as she held back every instinct to vomit, because as we know, she can't lie.
Oh, that was great. Ransom, in a last-ditch effort for some bit of vengeance, grabs a knife from the display of knives that we've kind of seen here and there, tries to stab her with it, but it's revealed to be a prop knife, which actually pays off a bit of a gag from earlier in the movie. There's a lot of that in this film.
Yeah, there's a line. Harlan says something about how his family can't tell the difference between a real knife and a prop.
Yeah, when you lose they've lost their edge, and the more disillusioned you get, you lose the ability to determine the real blade from a prop knife. And I imagine there's real knives in that display, and the one he grabbed just happens to be a prop. He's arrested. The information about Don Johnson's infidelity comes out. The last shot we have of him is him with a freshly swelling eye after Jamie Lee Curtis punches him, which is great. And Marta is left with kind of the conundrum about, I now have all of this money and property and stuff. I could actually, help them out on occasion. And it's left somewhat ambiguous whether or not
really?
I said somewhat.
The last shot is her holding a mug, and it says, "My house."
My house, my rules, my coffee.
What you can see, though, is it says just "my house."
I'm not saying she lets them live there anymore. I'm saying, it is somewhat ambiguous what role she might play with them in the future.
If you insist.
I mean, again, at a minimum, I imagine she helped out Meg with her college tuition, because that was kind of a big point for a while. There is some. I'm not saying she, would renounce things and give them back all their property or whatnot, but there's the nuances of the relationship between her and different members of the family might play out differently. That's all I'm saying.
Fair enough.
All right. Again, that was a bit of a windy way to get there, but that's the movie. So, Mark, I'll start with you. We've had two objectively good movies in a row here. I'm very, very nervous about the next few shows, but what'd you think of this?
I loved it. I kept thinking they were going to do something really stupid, like her and Ransom were in on it all along, and they were going to drive off together. I like the idea of you as the audience already know Marta didn't kill him. And the mystery is, the mystery isn't in so much as who killed Thromby, it's who hired Blanc. And, and a lot of the movie centers around Marta and her anxiety. I thought all that was interesting. It was a different take, I think, on the typical murder mystery. I thought everyone gave a great performance. This is a stellar acting crew. Michael Shannon, Jamie Lee Curtis, Chris Evans, Toni Collette. But the whole thing doesn't work if your lead is having difficulties and she's not believable. But the girl who plays Marta, I thought came across as sympathetic and somebody that you would root for. I thought she was written very well. So I don't really have a whole lot of complaints here. I think my only issue, if I have to find something to be really critical about, and this is a giant nitpick, I felt like the final clue ending, and this is what really happened, where you have this giant, I don't know if it's called, you would call it an exposition dump, but the final scene of Blanc going through his deductions and laying out what happened seemed very unwieldy. I could follow, in a very general sense, what was happening, especially with the use of flashbacks. I just thought, in general, it was very talky, for a motion picture. Maybe not how I would have done it. I might have gotten to the point a little bit faster. But does it make the movie bad? No. I just feel like that scene goes on forever. And his monologue explaining the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie seemed like it was a little overlong. But again, that also might be a personal thing, and it's a giant nitpick, like I said. Other than that, I loved Chris Evans in this. I thought, the smarmy, princely, ne'er-do-well who's trying to get one over on Marta and really the whole family, I thought he was great. And when he finally turns, we're so used to seeing him as the virtuous Captain America at this point that to see him as just a bag of shit was a nice turn for that particular actor and some really great, a really great opportunity for him to stretch as an actor. His best stuff, unfortunately, was also in the trailer. So, it's kind of the difficulty with modern movies today is a lot of times the best stuff is in the trailer, and they don't leave a lot left for the movie itself. But that last bit where none of that was in the trailer, and and he goes for the knife and everything, kind of saves it for me. Other than that, I don't really have much else to add. I thought the house was fun. As a set piece. This is supposed to be a murder mystery house that this guy lives in. Kind of a show house, and it was a fun place to set this thing. I thought as a commentary on greed and this got brought up actually on critically acclaimed with William Bibiani and I can never remember the second guy's name. It doesn't matter. He writes for IGN. But they were talking about there's an internal debate that happens in the movie about immigrants. And they were commenting on, Rian Johnson and his political agenda and how it was handled. And, I guess, if you want to get upset about that sort of thing or you want to cheer that sort of thing, hang on 1 second. I happen to have in-laws who are like Fox News watching upper class white folk. I have my dad who is a prominent member of the Brandon Democrat Club here in Hillsborough County, or the Eastern Hillsborough County Democrats, rather. I have seen that argument. I have lived it. I didn't, Rian Johnson may have an agenda, but the arguments being made and the people making them, was very real to me, and I didn't have a problem with it.
I was just going to say, I loved that it almost feels like that whole scene is designed to take the piss out of those types of political arguments.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm just going to say this as the wife of an immigrant. Politics aside, if you decide to pull an actual immigrant as a standing example and just basically point at them saying, okay, now take a look at this, you're an asshole.
Oh, sure.
I think it was established the Don Johnson character was an asshole well before that. But yes.
Yeah, and again, what I like about that is, again, you have a couple of people espousing the sort of conservative point. You have a couple of people espousing the liberal point. They're all morons. Like, none of them know what they're talking about in any sort of real capacity.
Right, and it devolves into name calling, and him pulling Marta into the center of the conversation and going, "You came here the right way, right?" But that's such a thing that people do.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have any idea how many people ask me, so how did Andre and his parents get here?
I mean, just the idea of, even if they could have been talking about abortion. There's always somebody that grabs somebody else and says, you did a thing. That thing is what we're talking about. Talk about it. And the person's like, what? I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to talk about this. That's more of what I'm saying. I mean, I understand that there's a personal thing there with the immigrant part of it. But I mean, that could have been any conversation. There's always somebody who feels the need to call somebody else out on it and then make them the centerpiece of that discussion, who doesn't want to be the centerpiece of that discussion.
Yeah. Again, I loved that. Again, to me, it felt more like they were, in Rian Johnson's sort of deconstructionist way, just kind of, again, taking the piss out of all those types of political arguments that we all have to deal with. Like, hey, here's about as accurate a representation of what this looks like as you're going to find. This is what all of you look and sound like. Feel good about yourselves? I
just wish there had been one person in that conversation who said, everything sucks and should be burned to the ground.
Yeah, that would have been nice. Look, Ransom wasn't there for the discussion, because that would have been his point.
Sure. I'm also poking fun at someone we know personally, but that's it's my right to do that.
I appreciate your right to do that. So I had a lot of fun with that. I mean, there's a lot of fun with this movie. I'm kind of with you as far as that goes. Anyway, Alexis, what was your experience with this? You mentioned that you seem to enjoy it from what we've talked about so far. So what were your kind of highlights, lowlights? Similar to Mark, I was originally afraid that they had given up their card too soon by showing us what had happened with Marta. And even at the end, I think it was up until the point where they revealed the toxicology report, I was so afraid that this was going to turn into Blanc trying to help Marta get away with the murder and running off with her or something. She's like, yes, you did, technically, commit a crime. But those people are assholes, and they deserve what they've got coming, or some shit like that. But the final reveal with Ransom, while a little whiny, I'll give you that, was still absolutely brilliant. I love how everything just fits so neatly into place.
Can I?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you've ever seen the movie Clue, Clue is the classic example of the guy at the end explaining how it all came to happen. But it isn't just him talking. There's a lot of interaction. There's people cracking jokes. Never mind the fact that they do it 3 times in a row, and they changed it up each time. And in some cases, the gag stays, and in some cases, it doesn't. But if you just take the very first time it happens, you have what's the actor's name? The butler.
Tim Curry.
You have Tim Curry running through the house and people chasing after him, and those who are out of shape, like just exhausted, like, oh God, not again. Or he takes somebody by the hand. I want to say it's Madeline Kahn who he takes by the hand, and she starts yelling. And he punches somebody. He's not just telling you how all the murders happened. it's a very showy, very visual, very dynamic way. So even though he's narrating it, there's still something fun to watch. That's the difference between Clue and Knives Out, where Daniel Craig is just kind of talking.
Well, Clue's also deliberately a comedy. This isn't.
Well, it's got a touch of black comedy to it.
Sure.
Well, look, I'm not saying Daniel Craig should have been running through the house, punching out Jamie Lee Curtis.
Although that would have been worth the price of admission easily.
Sure. But I think what you should get from that particular critique of mine is maybe there was a way to be more visual about it than just a monologue, is my only point. And I'm going to pitch it back to Alexis now.
You know what? As a fan of Agatha Christie and as someone who has seen both versions of Murder on the Orient Express,
I certainly hope it's properly oriented.
Murder on the Disoriented Express. I don't know where I am.
Oh, no, you're going to get the British up in arms because to them it's disorientated.
God.
Hey, that's how they pronounce it. For them, it's not oriented; it's orientated.
Okay, well, here I have seen both versions of the movie. The original, I think, is a classic. So
The less said about Johnny Depp, the better.
He gets killed. Who cares? I thought when I heard about the remake originally, I heard he was going to play Perot, and I was like, oh fuck no.
No, thankfully.
Yeah, thankfully, no, they didn't do that. We were saved Johnny Depp doing an over-the-top French accent. I don't think I could have survived that.
I mean, Kenneth Branagh was a solid choice for Perot.
Well, regardless, so I am not apropos to I'm not against the whole the detective explaining everything at the end. I know that is a lot of the ways it happens. Hell, I've watched, Sherlock God knows how many times, the Benedict Cumberbatch version. So, again, you get a lot of that at the end of a good detective story. So,
like any sane person, do you stop after the third season?
Does that include the 1800s special feature they did?
No, you can include that.
Good, because I thought that was awesome.
No. Like, just the last season is so bad.
I really haven't gotten into the last season. But let me put it this way.
The contemporary stuff ends with Andrew Scott's Did You Miss Me montage. Like, that's where it should end.
Fair enough. Now, this is the best way I can put this. I went to go see this on Thanksgiving night with my husband. Now, I kind of had to drag Andre into this because he is not a fan of mysteries. Andre is very much the whole get-to-it kind of a person. He's a little on the impatient side. He doesn't like playing video games where you have to deal with an enormous amount of cutscenes and backstory. He just is very, okay, let's go. Let's do it. But I convinced him when I showed him all the great reviews in the Rotten Tomatoes score. I'm like, honey, look, this thing's getting, things getting praised. It sounds awesome. And when we walked out of the theater, he said, I don't like murder mysteries, but that was really good. So this is a movie that even got him, someone who is not a fan of that style. Yeah, we both really enjoyed this film. I think the only nitpick I had, and my God, this is the tiniest thing in the world, the letter that Harlan leaves to Jamie Lee Curtis that says that her husband is cheating on him. Don Johnson finds it after Harlan's quote-unquote suicide, and he opens it, but it's blank. And he's thinking, oh, he was just, bluffing me. We find out later that it was written in invisible ink, and this is a game that Harlan and his daughter used to play with one another. And she, uncovers the ink and learns the truth. Tell me I'm not the only one that when he opened the letter, you could see the watermark of the invisible ink very easily. Tell me I'm not the only one who noticed that.
Yeah, a little, but I'm willing to go along with Don Johnson's character being dumb enough to just completely overlook it if it's not obvious.
I did laugh pretty hard that when they're escorting his son away in cuffs, he's waving a wad of cash in the policemen's faces.
That is a thing.
Knives Out, also known as White People Are Embarrassing.
Yes, they are. No, this was a...
Human beings are embarrassing. We all are. We all know it.
This was a really entertaining movie. Definitely top 10, if not maybe top 5 of 2019 for me.
There's a Time article, speaking of white people are embarrassing, that named this one of the 10 best films of the year. You know what was number 10? Hustlers. With, what's her face?
Jennifer Lopez?
With Jennifer Lopez, yes.
Okay, that person is a moron, whoever wrote that list.
Actually, we're obviously not the target demographic for that film, but I've heard it's... Yes. By the way, Eddie's been saying hi in the background if you haven't heard.
I heard a few squeaks.
Fine, Kier. Give me your toy, buddy.
All right, Robert, do your thing and let's keep going.
I mentioned this is one of the most entertaining films I've been able to see all year. I was waiting. How do I say this? I expected Rian Johnson to, again, subvert expectations because he's very, very good at doing that in a very engaging way. It's one of the things everyone and their dog complained about with The Last Jedi, because he showed you a little bit of, oh, you expect X. Well, here's B. And still kind of made it work. And again, The Last Jedi is probably the best Star Wars movie on an objective scale. If it's not the best, it's the second.
Yes.
Again, if it's not number 1, it's number 2.
It's number 2.
I'm not getting into that debate with you.
Okay.
And
Empire's the best.
I feel better.
Okay, do I have to separate you two again?
Nope, I'm good. I did my talking over Robert joke. We can move on. Turn page.
Okay. So I was very curious how he would, again, kind of subvert expectations with the whodunit genre. Be that a reveal that there was no mystery, or, you know, we have a detective who's looking for connectivity in places there is none, and this is as straightforward as it gets, but we go on this winding journey just as kind of a giant misdirect. Again, I wasn't sure how they were going to play that. And the decision to just reveal to the audience almost immediately, hey, here's what happened, was a stroke of genius. Because it recontextualizes everything else that we go through in the movie that would normally just be collecting clues, and instead becomes a bit of a nail-biter in the sense that, you know, we know the characters well enough to know who we're rooting for. We know the totality of circumstance, so we know... Well, not the totality necessarily, but we know the circumstance. So we know there's no malicious action having been taken. And trying to figure out where we as the audience are going to fall on that line. You know, again, who are we rooting for? How are we rooting for them? Watching her try to, you know, mess up clues here and there, and then a couple of times it not working out. You know, the dog bringing back the piece of the trellis that she broke off when climbing. Because, you know, she takes it from the dog first and throws it away before Blanc can see it, and then the dog playing fetch basically brings it back, and he does see it. Which I got a kick out of. There's, again, all of that takes on a very, very different context, and then once you kind of get in the mold of, oh, we know what happened, now is Blanc just going to kind of be a bit of a buffoon about this, come to the wrong conclusion? Is she going to, you know, quote-unquote, get away with it? Then the final, again, kind of subversion that we get is, no, there is, in fact, a very detailed whodunit mystery going on, but the character we've been following most of the time isn't the one really trying to put it together. So, again, we're following a detailed whodunit, but we're following a secondary character more so than the detective in question. And this just leads us to, again, the detective actually putting together the whodunit mystery. And, again, it's brilliant. It's a really, really well thought out twist on the genre. There's a lot of, again, alteration of some of the tropes. There's a few left turns when you think there should be rights. And then it culminates with, again, what you expect at the end of a whodunit mystery when you don't actually realize elements of, the mystery that you were supposed to be paying attention to. I really enjoyed this. All of the acting is great. Again, our kind of nitpicks about Craig's accent aside, all of the acting is good to great. Some people are given more or less to do, but not everyone can have a lot of screen time. It's the reality of writing a movie.
Props to Chris Evans for the fact that he had to act like he hates those 2 German Shepherds. If anyone follows Chris Evans on Twitter, he is a huge dog lover.
Yeah. He gets a lot of credit for that, and again, just for effectively acting like that big a pile of crap, because that's not always the easiest thing to do.
And like you guys said, especially after coming off the heels of playing America's First Son, this was a perfect role for him.
Oh, stop it!
Sorry.
Michael
Mark,
Shannon.
Mark, just because you live in the South, you don't have to act like the South.
The South shall rise again. Sorry.
The joke is Mark is Jewish.
That too.
I got to ask you guys, how did you feel about the twist that Harlan didn't need to kill himself? That if he had waited, if he had gone to the hospital, he would have been fine.
I got the sneaking suspicion he was at a point in his life where he was just willing to check out. We
do get the speech where he says, "I'm not afraid of death."
I got the impression that with the cutting off of his family and knowing what that would mean, and the kind of reflection that, looking back, he thought he was making the right decisions for his family, but look where it led them. Look what kinds of people they turned out to be. And this is what makes this an interesting film. Not everything is super spelled out and stated matter-of-factly. I could be off with this, but that's what's great about this, is that there's room for interpretation. There's room for projection. So take this with a grain of salt. But I got the impression watching him that he was struggling with regret, and Marta gave him an easy out. Like, if it hadn't been that situation, something else would have come along where he was like, yeah, I'm ready to go. So I think his willingness to believe that Marta poisoned him and then taking his own life was like, oh, thank God, I can just check out now.
Yeah, this got brought up very briefly, but, the old throat slit, that's not a common method of suicide. And if his immediate reaction is, well, I'm going to go and we're not going to, give me more, because he could have very easily gone, oh, well, all right, I'm going to check out. How about you just leave the morphine with me? I can, inject myself more with, not a wrist slit, not pills, not, to actually just go for the throat slash. Like, that says something about your mental state.
Yeah.
That's a very, not just violent method of going, but a very final one. Like, there's a lot that's made about different methodologies of suicide and what it says about where you are emotionally and mentally. And the willingness to cut your own throat is more often, I believe, attributed to, like, severe desperation. But you also, like, if you do that right, there is no saving you. Like, that's a guarantee.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't buy that he was, like, real worried about it,
And I hate to say it, there was also part of this movie that I was laughing at pretty hard, and that was just the lawyer who had to do the will reading.
That's Frank Oz, by the way. That's Frank Oz, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, it's like Frank Oz of all people. But I just love the fact that, hours after he has read this, they're going back and forth, and he's just sitting there clearly pissed off.
I don't know how many times I can go over the same 3 points, guys.
Yeah, and he's like, you are useless. Like, thank you. I can go now, right?
It's so good.
Well, I hate to, this also hit me. You guys know I lost my grandmother a couple of months ago. She had laid out very careful plans for the inheritance for each of her sons and every single one of her grandchildren. I believe my dad said it best when he was handed the list or the files that Grandma had put away before dying. He thought it was the Mueller report. That's how thick it was. And thankfully, Grandma had taken very careful steps to make sure that every family member was taken care of in a decent amount. She had made sure that the stuff was not going to be heavily taxed and that we weren't going to have any future problems. And all I could think when watching that scene was if any one of my uncles or aunts had felt that they'd gotten shorted, even like $1 compared to the other grandkids, it would look like this.
There's that line from Daniel Craig's character about will readings. A lot gets made of them, but 90% of the time they're more like a stage production of a tax audit, which is correct. But again, Michael Shannon does a great job.
Toni Collette blew me out of the water. I mean, I've seen her in a handful of things, but the thing I know her best from is Sixth Sense. And you don't even recognize her in this role.
I'm trying to think what her best work would be to recommend if you haven't seen a lot of her. She got snubbed hard at the Oscars a couple of years ago for Hereditary because the Oscars...
Oh, God, I love Hereditary.
Because the Oscars hate horror.
Yeah, side note, Midsommar was awesome.
I don't know. I go back and forth on Midsommar. There's a lot of it that's really good, but man, is that a long movie.
Oh, I'll give you that. But God, that director really knows how to put you in the same state of discomfort as the characters. You get absorbed into those roles.
I mean, he also, that director, because that's the same director as The Witch, that I absolutely loved.
Oh, that's a movie I can only watch once. I cannot handle that movie more than once. I think it's that good. It just really, it screws with you. It really screws with you.
I had a friend who mentioned in his review of it that it deeply affected him, and to the point where he's like, it's a really profound piece of art that can actually make you kind of question your place in the world. And I was already going to see the movie, but after seeing his perspective, I went, I'm curious what made Tom feel that way. And then I saw it, and I got to the ending and went, oh, I get why this kind of messed with Tom.
It's like, oh, that's great. I need alcohol.
I don't drink, but yeah, point being, I loved the twist at the end of Witch. Anyway, back to this. The other thing I could recommend for Toni Collette, if you want to get more of a feel for her work, she was on I think like a 3-season HBO, Showtime, something like that thing called The United States of Terror.
I've seen like one episode of that, yeah.
Where she plays a person with dissociative identity disorder. And Toni Collette's a very, very good actress. I didn't really expect her to be able to pull off Valley Girl from just the trailer, but watching her get into it, no, she makes it work. I have no. Jamie Lee Curtis continues to be awesome, just kind of generally. Again, the acting is really good all the way around. The story is, again, as a deliberate kind of subversion or play on the traditional whodunit mystery. This is brilliant, and I don't really have anything negative to say about it, all things considered. Up to and including the hilarious car chase scene.
That was the worst car chase ever. That's so funny.
That was the dumbest car chase. Yeah, she's like, oh, are you flooring it? Yeah, I'm barely going 60. Everyone else is doing 80, catching up to them with ease.
All right, you ready to do the money?
Yeah. point being, everyone, if you haven't seen this and you think like it's something you'll be interested in, go see it. This is a genuinely good movie, pretty much from top to bottom.
Go see Queen and Slim first, then go see this.
No, do not.
Wah, wah, wah.
All right, here we go. Here come the money. God damn it. Wrong one.
I knew you were going to do that.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar.
Despite Frozen, despite this being a holiday season, despite this not being any IP, this movie hit it out of the ballpark. On a $40 million budget, this thing at the time of this recording has made $72.6 million for Lionsgate. Congratulations, Rian Johnson and everybody involved.
Well, they're really banking on the advertising, pointing out all of the amazing reviews this thing has gotten. They're able to really sell it on that.
Even before that, they were doing a good job of pointing out, not of style. This movie was properly advertised, which is a rarity these days.
They dumped a lot into promotion for this because this I had seen trailers for this over the summer.
Yeah, this has been. Yeah. They've been teasing this for a while.
Yeah, I remember when we first saw the trailers for this, and Robert, you and I both asked, can we put this on the schedule? And we're like, what do you mean this doesn't come out until Thanksgiving?
Yeah. Plus, again, one of the selling points was, hey, this is something from Rian Johnson, and everyone who's not a Star Wars, I'll say Star Wars nerd in this case because I absolutely mean it at the moment. Everyone who wasn't a Star Wars nerd knows how good a director this guy is. And he's a bit of a selling point in and of himself at the moment.
All right. So for the 5-day weekend from November 27th to December 1st, because this came out on a Wednesday, Frozen 2 is your number one movie, then Knives Out, then Ford vs. Ferrari, then A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which is the Tom Hanks movie where he plays Mr. Rogers.
Which I've also heard is quite good.
Queen and Slim, 21 Bridges, Playing with Fire, Midway, Last Christmas, and Joker. For the actual, just the weekend, November 29th through December 1st. Frozen, again, number one for the weekend.
To the shock of no one.
Knives Out debuted at number 2. Ford vs. Ferrari fell from 2 to 3. Queen and Slim debuted at number 4.
Open soft.
A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood 3 to 5. 21 Bridges 4 to 6.
Boy, can we talk for just a second about 21 Bridges basically cratering? That has not done well.
Look, and this is the conversation we had a week or so ago when we talked about Charlie's Angels and The Good Liar. It's hard for movies based on, not based on any IP to find an audience in theaters right now. 21 Bridges is one of those movies where people, I'm sure, are just as happy watching it at home. And there's really no reason not to go see it. It's got a great cast. It's directed by the guys that did the fucking Avengers movies, for Christ's sake. Starring Black Panther.
And I think they only produced. I don't think the Russos directed it.
I was under the impression they directed it, but maybe I'm wrong.
I will find out.
Hang on, I've got IMDb here. Yes, Eddie. Hi. Sorry, I'm trying to type and
Either way, it's one of those movies where
they just produced it. It's directed by somebody else.
Okay, either way, this has everything going for it, but when you consider,
well, Chadwick Boseman is not a star actor at the moment. He hit it again. He absolutely did a great job as Black Panther. This is not me casting aspersions at his ability as an actor. But there's a difference between being a really good actor and being a really good actor that can carry a movie apropos of nothing but your name.
Well, so that's my point, though, is that divorced from any contextual IP or being part of a franchise, things of that nature, it's hard for things to find an audience.
Well, especially when the trailer for this movie was not all that inspiring to begin with. Like, there was not a tremendous push for this thing from the marketing standpoint.
I don't know. I saw trailers for it for most of the movies that I saw this past summer.
Sure, I mean, so did I, but it was the same trailer, and it didn't look good the first time, and didn't get any better.
I'm not going to argue with you. If no one saw it, this really, I don't have a whole lot to argue against that with. But I think
don't worry, we'll get King T'Challa back.
I think my only point, just to move on with this, is that 20 years ago, I think 21 Bridges finds an audience and does fine. I think most movies now struggle in theaters, no matter how good they are, when you don't have the other legs propping them up. It's what we talked about.
In some cases, even if you do have those legs kind of propping you up, they fail.
Yeah, in some cases.
I'm just realizing, though, if you actually look at what's top 10 right now, I think this is one of the first weekends, and I don't know how long that the box office, while Frozen 2 is number one, it's not being completely 100% dominated by the mouse.
Well, I mean, Star Wars is going to come out in a week or two.
And then all hail the mouse.
The other side of that is, now when you say all hail the mouse, you have to include Fox in that. And Fox, everything that Fox released for the year 2019 got put on Disney's books. So, they can claim credit for those too, even though they didn't necessarily, monetarily produce them.
That is on their books now. I didn't think it was going to be on their books until 2020.
I mean, they own the studio at this point, so I would assume at this point they are, they're taking credit for whatever profits are made on these movies. I know they cut a bunch of them going forward.
I guess I didn't think that they would officially start seeing the profits on it until after everything that was already signed, sealed, and done before the purchase went into effect. You know what I'm saying? It's
hey, if they had to eat the losses from Dark Phoenix, they're going to claim the profits.
So just Joker was top 10, retained his spot at the number 10 position. It's 9 weeks in theaters now and over $1 billion. Harriet stayed at number 11. Good Liar 7-12. Maleficent 12-13. Charlie's Angels, poor Elizabeth Banks, 8-14.
Don't feel bad for her. She'll leverage the fact that she's a woman being maligned unfairly to get more work.
Sigourney Weaver says, "Grow a pair."
Darn right she does.
Jojo Rabbit 14-15. Parasite 15-16.
I gotta see that.
Doctor Sleep 13-17. Terminator 16-18. Dark Waters apparently showed up in a bunch more theaters. So that jumped from 29 to 19. And then finally, Addams Family 18-20. And here's where we stand worldwide. Come on. There we go. Not a tremendous amount of movement here. Everything's pretty much where it was 2 weeks ago. Except that Frozen has jumped into the top 10. So there are currently 1, 2, if you count Spider-Man, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 10 movies in the top 10, which I believe we said at the beginning of the year that by the end of the year, the Disney had a chance at claiming all 10 spots at the top 10.
Not going to say it again.
All hail the mouse.
I can only say it once per show.
The other movies, you've got Joker with $1.049 billion, Fast and the Furious, which... Okay, so I need to... we've been talking about how, it didn't make $1 billion, so it was a failure. Apparently Universal's like, we'll take it, and they're considering a sequel to this nonsense.
Look, if they're willing to... And I mean, look, that wasn't just us saying it did make $1 billion, it failed miserably. That was that was like internally. They knew they needed something of that caliber to really be successful between production and marketing and all that crap. And they didn't get there. But if they see enough of a return, their perspective might be, okay, if we spend $100 million less in total and adjust our expectations a little bit, if we can repeat a $700 million movie with a more appropriate budget of both production and marketing, then hey, money. And fair enough, if that's what they want to try.
Just as a point of order, Maleficent is currently sitting at $480 million worldwide. What did we say the budget on this was?
That is not good.
I can't find the budget. Damn it.
Hang on, I'll find it.
Stupid box office mojo.
You are just not happy with them changing things.
No, this stuff used to be like easily available.
It had a budget of $185 million.
All right, so it made double its budget.
Yeah, it's not going to be a big loss. I don't know how much they spent on marketing and advertisement.
I think what I was angling for here is, I didn't think it made that much. So it's made almost $500 million. I'm guessing they're probably going to do a third one of these.
They might. I wouldn't put it past them, I'll say that.
Yeah. So anyway, that's where we are for the year. As far as what happens now with Knives Out, I mean, the calendar, without even looking at the official releases, I mean, there's nothing coming out this week of any value, or I'd have it on my personal calendar. But then you have Jumanji that comes out on the 13th, and then Disney that comes out on the 19th. So Knives Out is going to get kind of lost in... I mean, I think if you're one of those people who's going to the theater and was like, oh my god, I don't want to see the video game movie, and I don't want to go see the stupid Star Wars movie, and you haven't already seen Knives Out, maybe those people during the Christmas season, people like my parents' age, will head out to the theater and go see Knives Out. But I can't imagine it does tremendous business between now and when it's finally out of theaters.
I'm going to put down a prediction that this is going to see a second resurgence, because when we get to around to award season, I don't know if Knives Out has the potential for Oscars, but I know that this is going to sweep the Golden Globes.
Maybe. Yeah,
I think you're right. I think it'll kind of do okay in its initial run, but come award season, it'll probably get it might even get a re-release. It might be one of those things. And given some of the acting, given the writing, I mean, if this doesn't get like writing and directing noms, then I don't know what else to say. You're talking about a bunch of morons, but you're also talking about a system that, again, has completely ignored several incredible bits of performance or direction or writing, just based on the genre it takes place in over the years. So who knows?
I mean, like I said, this is probably going to get sided into the comedic or the best comedies for Golden Globes, because I do not see them giving this to the drama.
Yeah, I don't see this being like a best picture or anything, but I think individual performances, like Chris Evans might get a nod.
And I'm with Robert. I hope this gets best original screenplay noms.
Maybe. All right. No.
And I really hope Rian Johnson, if he wins anything in his acceptance speech, pisses on Star Wars fans.
Terrific.
Well, like I said, if he's supposed to direct an episode of The Mandalorian in the future, that's probably going to be a mistake. P.S. Go watch The Mandalorian.
I think I'm just going to wait for the entire thing to be released.
That's what I'm doing. I'm going to say it again to the people listening to this. Stop asking me to watch The Mandalorian. I'll watch it when it gets closer to review time. Leave me alone.
Sorry, Andre and I have been enjoying it too much. We watch it every Friday.
I got to get through The Crown, Runaways, Fuller House.
Hold on. I can save you trouble. The Crown sucks. Runaways sucks.
So's your mom. Here we go.
No, that's not just me. Like, The Crown, the last couple of seasons of The Crown have been...
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
So this is pretty universally praised.
Wait, Mark, did Did you play the music there over Robert, or did you wait till he was done to hit play?
No, I played it right over him.
Oh, good. I was going to say, I would have lost a lot of respect for you if you had waited for him to finish.
Nope. I was actually going to jump in with the joke of like, sorry I couldn't hear you over Triple H's yelling, but I was like, nah, just going to move on with this.
Look, you would not be the first nor the last person to use that particular line.
True. Anyway, not a whole lot here in terms of, this is going to be a very short segment because this is pretty universally praised. And I can't even see in the fresh reviews a lot of really stupid things that were being said.
Even old man Morgenstern got his head out of his ass for this one.
Devesh Sharma of Filmfare. The film does falter a bit towards the second half, but that's because Rian Johnson wanted to employ every known trope of the detective novel. You're hooked till the very end, nevertheless, thanks to nostalgia and humor.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I agree with that. I understand kind of the perspective in as much as there is a bit like the middle third of this movie is not as engaging as either the first third or the last third, but that doesn't mean it falters necessarily, and if it does, it's only by comparison to two other excellent parts.
You know, the truth is the only negative critique I've heard so far is somebody said that they were upset that this film didn't come with a warning for people with emetophobia.
Oh, for God's sake.
That's fear of vomiting, by the way.
Because everybody needs to be considered for everything, apparently.
Apparently somebody with severe emetophobia went in to see the movie, and as we pointed out, one of the main Marta throws up constantly, and they did have to leave the theater. So,
I mean, did it need a warning for chlorophobist?
So this guy's name, I want him to be like a Marvel villain. Richard Von Busak.
Haven't you used him before?
Maybe.
I'll say that sounds like Dr. Doom's accountant.
He's from Metroactive.
Ooh.
Knives Out is Thanksgiving entertainment for those seething at their relatives over the turkey carcass.
That's barely what?
Huh? I'm sorry. Did my brain just stroke off, or did that not make any sense?
Is the implication that the only people finding enjoyment in this movie are those who share a similar familial relationship to the Thornburgs?
Okay, I found one. Kurt Loder.
Oh, no.
A man who hates more stuff than Gavin Napier, Robert Winfree, and Pat Mullen combined.
Loder, why aren't you dead yet?
Hey, that's Robert's line.
I was going to say, that's normally my line, but I appreciate the sentiment, if nothing else.
Look, if you're not going to say it, I will. Quit muscling in on Robert's racket. You're supposed to be the positive one.
Yeah, well, I'm a child of the 90s, thank you.
Fair enough. Kurt Loder of Reason Online. Despite the story's many incidental pleasures, it never really takes off.
Oh, shut up.
Blow me, Kurt.
What were you expecting, Mr. Loder? Another instance of, boy, there's going to be a lot of shootouts and car chases? Hey, what do you mean the story never takes off? Sure, there's no space lasers. What's the matter with you?
And yes, it's not crazy fast-paced. It's a murder mystery. This is a film that takes its time as it should. This is not a film that you want to go at a fast pace.
As old as you are, you'd think this guy could remember the classics like The Deer Hunter and appreciate a movie that takes its time.
Yeah, I'm dying over here. So we're going to wrap this up shortly. PJ Nabarro of Patrick Nabarro. Robert?
No, I'm not going to do it.
Robert?
I'm not going to do it for him.
Why?
Because you've never used this guy before. This might be an aberration. If this is a really bad review, I'll throw it at him to open my critique of him.
Knives Out's most distinctive feature is its overwhelming sense of its own cleverness.
Okay, you self-employed loser.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. So because a movie is smart, it can't revel in the fact that it's smart? I mean, this is a very smart film. It really is. It's very clever and creative, and it earns the right to know that it's clever and creative.
Yeah, the notion that everything has to be dumbed down to the lowest common denominator is entirely too common a sentiment. And it's nice to see a movie that doesn't, that unapologetically doesn't.
I hope he enjoys Jumanji 3 in 2 weeks.
Stand by what we said, folks. We're really hoping this film gets an original screenplay. It is very, very smart. And it's an original story. This is not based on anything.
Frank Switek of One Guy's Opinion.
Well, we know how valuable
this boy.
Dude, it's like if you're going to be honest with yourself.
Frank Switek of Twitter's Anonymous. A convoluted comic whodunit, in which twist is piled upon twist and an exceptional cast savors the chance to misdirect us every which way while we enjoy the cunningly goofy ride they take us on.
That is a bizarrely constructed bit of paragraph for you there, buddy. I mean, this isn't even all that convoluted for a murder mystery. I don't know what to tell you, man, but maybe you just haven't, read a book recently.
So this is a fascinating one. I'm curious to see what your reaction's going to be to it. Wendy Shriva featuring film.
Ugh.
Marta has the unenviable quirk of revealing a lie via projectile vomiting. A device used far too often across genres in movies these days. Because I remember watching The Avengers, and every time Scarlett Johansson told a lie, her vomiting on top of Bruce Banner. I remember this distinctly, as a matter of fact.
I'm sorry, has somebody been watching too much Applejack on My Little Pony?
I can genuinely not think of another instance of this gimmick.
Yeah, I don't know what she's talking about.
Like,
I got nothing.
How do you arrive at character physically can't lie or else they vomit, and this is a much used trope?
I can't even really think of characters who it's obvious that they're lying because they give away something physically. I really can't think of it.
I mean, the closest thing I can recall to this particular kind of gag is there's an episode of Frasier where, it's revealed that anytime he breaches his personal ethics, he becomes physically ill.
Oh yeah, wasn't there an episode where Niles gets a nosebleed or something?
Yeah, Niles gets a nosebleed and Frasier vomits. And it's only used in the one episode.
Like I said, the only thing I could think of is, again, My Little Pony. Whenever Applejack lies, she goes scrunchy faced.
James,
I'll take your word for it. I have not seen any of that.
James Vernier.
That's why you show.
James Vernier of Boston Herald. Mildly entertaining clue-like outing with a disappointing role for Daniel Craig. Can I see Murder on the Orient Express instead? Ugh.
Which one?
If I thought this particular blowhard was aware of the original, I'd give him credit for it. He just... No. I know what this guy did. He Googled famous murder mystery movies and came up with Clue and the Orient Express and decided, well, one of these is going to be the movie I compare it to. The other is going to be the one I'd say I'd rather see. And flipped a coin about which was which.
Steve Davis of Austin Chronicle. Greed is definitely good when it's this funny. He.
No.
What?
Ow. That hurt my head.
I don't get it. He's quoting... What?
Wall Street, yes.
Yeah, I know, but... No, dude, no. You have not earned the right to compare to Michael Douglas.
And I also assume you're not nearly literate enough in the field of economics to understand the fundamental principles of the argument Michael Douglas's character even begins attempting to make.
Doesn't even make sense. Greed is good. The greedy characters get their asses handed to them.
I mean, greed's not even a primary... I hate to say this, greed's not even like a primary theme to the movie. It's the subtext under which a bunch of it operates, but there's no great dissertation or commentary on greed as a societal evil. It's more, hey, these people are kind of terrible. Their greed is more a subtext, they're not bad people because they're greedy. Like, they're greedy because they're bad people. If that makes any sense.
Paddy Cahoe of something from Ireland. I don't even know what this is. Something Irish. Knives Out is a trite, pale comedy that tries to be as infantile as it can be within the bounds of an adult entertainment.
Oh, that is ridiculous.
Did he walk into an Adam Sandler movie by accident?
I assume. Maybe this was meant to be his review of Jumanji.
Turned in the wrong pre-written article.
Yeah, like... Okay, look. Yeah, sure. There's mild bits of... I hate to say lowbrow humor, because it's not even really lowbrow humor in the traditional sense of the word. But the notion this is infantile... I'm sorry, I've seen infantile movies. You mentioned Adam Sandler. That's a good one. I've seen a lot of Elizabeth Banks' movies. Another good example of infantile filmmaking. And I'll say specifically, the Pitch Perfect movies are about as infantile as it gets, without actual, like, Baby Mozart stuff.
My daughter loves those movies because she likes to sing and dance. She's 8.
I rest my case.
Yup. Michael, that was not a counterpoint.
No, I appreciate you supporting my argument.
Michael Smith of Tulsa World. I left not caring what the future held for a single one of these characters. Great.
I mean, that should be your reaction. Oh, God, stop. Hang on. Just full stop for 1 second. Why is it virtuous to pretend that you care about a fictional character's future, quote-unquote? I got a news flash for you, buddy. They don't have one. It's whatever the author wants. I mean, I suppose there's a group of people that are now going to be conditioned towards, I have to care deeply about all of these characters because there's going to be 5 sequels and a crossover. And no, that's ridiculous. Even in those movies, you don't have to care all that much about what happens to these characters next.
And the winner of the Damn You Hollywood Calm the Fuck Down Award goes to Zephany Zasharek of Time Magazine, top critic.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry. Should I go jump in the foxhole?
You might want to give Eddie his soundproof ears. The noise-canceling headphones have to go on the dog that's easily scared.
Knives Out isn't just a beautifully made diversion. It's also a utopian vision.
Oh, shut up.
What?
I mean, it's no Reese Witherspoon turning into lettuce, but sure.
Okay, I'm going to speak for this particular author for just a bit. I imagine the utopian vision being discussed is the rich white man is appropriately guilty about all of his rich whiteness and throws all of his money at the poor immigrant. This is so stupid. I mean, again, one of my favorite things about this movie is that family has both political parties represented. They're both morons, and they're all morons, and they're all treated as such. The only political agenda, quote unquote, that this movie has is given to be espoused by characters that we all know are profoundly stupid and should not be taken seriously.
How dare you? Katie Walsh of the Tribune News Service, top critic, disagrees with you, sir.
I don't care about Katie Walsh.
Of the Tribune News Service, top critic.
He still doesn't care.
How dare you? The class warfare picture by way of Agatha Christie. Wait, this gets better. The class warfare picture by way of Agatha Christie that we never knew we needed, but we do now more than ever. Yay!
Okay. In all seriousness, how many of these morons have never read a mystery novel?
I'm just going to say that.
Go ahead.
One of the best things about this movie is that, honestly, the class warfare thing never really enters into the picture. Marta is not portrayed as she is a relatively poor immigrant nurse. We see that she shares an apartment with her mother and her sister. I'm assuming that's her sister. You know, yes, these other people are upper class wasps. They're pain in the asses. But the fact is that this is never played as the rich versus the poor. This is played as the good and honest versus the stupid.
Yeah, which is how it should be played, because honesty and integrity are not at all character traits that are the domain of any race, class, creed, ethnicity, or religion.
You know, I even give credit to the fact that not all of Harlan's children are all just, inheritance children who made their money off of their daddy's penny. I mean, yes, Michael Shannon's characters, because, again, he says, oh, I run a publishing company. It's like, you publish dad's books. That is not the same thing. But they also established that Jamie Lee Curtis is a self-made woman. She started her own retail business from the ground up. Like, this is not just poking fun at one specific class.
Can I also just say that, and I hate the way that this gets played around as a giant negative, that, yeah, she started her own business. Yeah, but, Dad gave her her father gave her $1 million investment. You know what? Do you have any idea how many morons would have taken $1 million? And everybody thinks that that's a lot of money. And don't get me wrong, in most contexts it is.
Our current president, a lot of his real estate empire was
from
acquired, by virtue of either getting money from his father or inheriting properties outright. And while many of them were successful, many of them were not. There are, I think, as many Trump failures as there have been Trump successes.
Oh, there's a lot more failures.
There's that famous line that the story that his daughter will tell on occasion, Ivanka, about walking outside of Trump Tower, seeing, kind of a bum on the street, and Donald turning to her and going, I kind of envy that guy. He's got $300 million more than I do right now.
I remember that story.
Yeah, so just because Dad gives you $1 million doesn't mean you're going to make a profit, is the point.
Yeah, not at all.
I am going to say this again. As I mentioned, my grandmother left me and my cousins all a decent amount of money. Not naming names, not pointing fingers, but from what I have heard from my father and a couple of others, apparently a handful of my cousins have already blown through a lot of that cash.
Well, cocaine costs a lot of money. It's just, I'm not saying they did. I'm just saying, cocaine costs a lot of money.
I'm not pointing names. On the rare chance that anyone in my family listens to this show.
Hey, who's that asshole saying we did cocaine? We did no such thing. Look, I'm just saying cocaine costs a lot of money.
Not as much as it used to.
Not as much as it used to, it's true.
Just somewhat related to that, generational wealth in America isn't really a thing. And there's reasons for that, this family kind of being somewhat indicative of why. If you have very rich parents, you might inherit something, and your kids might inherit a bit, but again, that's about the extent of it. Unless even when you get to like the fabulously wealthy, take the Waltons. The Walton, like the current generation of Waltons, their grandchildren are probably not going to get nearly as much as they did. It's just generational wealth in the United States, for a variety of reasons, isn't nearly the same kind of thing that it is in other countries. And again, some of that is law-related, some of that is the inevitable cycle of the market that we have set up here versus, again, how generational wealth is accrued in other countries. But, yeah, she gets a loan from her father. But if you think there are so many businesses out there that have had more than $1 million pumped into them and failed miserably. An investment of capital is necessary at times, but it is far from a guarantor of success.
All right, I think that just about wraps it up for this show.
Hang on. Since that person was talking about class warfare, if you are not familiar with the trope, and I absolutely mean trope, of the rich old guy snubbing his family and giving his inheritance to the butler, I don't know what books you have been reading over the last 20 years, but I can tell you all the ones you haven't, and it's a long-ass list.
Toby agrees with you. Stop it, dog. Sorry.
Thanks, Toby.
Hey, look, if the dogs are agreeing with my point, I will take that as a sign of victory.
Well, they're either agreeing with you or they want to go outside. Take your pick.
Both? Can it be both?
As I was saying, I believe that wraps up our show. Boy, whenever I think we're going to have nothing to talk about, we go 2 hours fairly consistently.
Well, we also went down a couple of rabbit holes this time around.
1 or 2, yes.
Yeah, Star Wars holes.
That's what she said.
I said...
Hey, you can't give Mark that kind of an opening.
That's what she said.
Because this is what he will fill it with.
That's what she said. Wait, what was that line again?
I said I should have just kept my mouth shut and gone the dogs their treats.
No, not you, him.
I said you can't give Mark this kind of an opening because this is the kind of stuff he will fill it with.
That's the title of your sex tape. Booyah! Alright, moving on.
No, look, we all know what the title of my sex tape is, Mark.
Only the lonely, da-da-da-da-da.
I was going to go with William Faulkner's As I Lay Dying.
God.
Oh, this got dark in a hurry. Title of your sex tape. Anyway,
All right, Peter Griffin, that's enough out of you.
I'm going to go in the corner. You guys do plugs.
Go lament your lost mustache.
Mustache what?
All right. Alexis, save us from Mark's inane chicanery with your plugs.
I'm sorry, I need a
moment. Yes, I have successfully broken Alexis. It's about damn time.
Okay, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic. We just wrapped up our 20% off holiday sale. But I do have news. This month, starting from tomorrow, December 3rd to Christmas, we are going to be doing something special. For every order that we get from December 3rd to midnight on Christmas, we will donate $5 to Children's Mercy this year. We did something similar to this last year. I want to bring it back. So we just put a bunch of stuff online, a bunch of our new products, including our new Mandalorian Scrabble Tile Choker Necklace. I'm going to shove Baby Yoda down Mark's throat.
That's what she said.
Christ.
I had to get it in at Mark's expense this time. It is also a literal truth. That is what you said.
Thanks, Sheldon.
Oh, now I am hurt.
Oh, good Lord. So, as always, we have our stores on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon. We are open for custom orders. We love making new things. You can always find us on Facebook, Instagram, and under Protest Twitter. Again, every order we get until Christmas Day, $5 will be donated to Children's Mercy. So stop by our stores. Listen to me cough, damn you allergies. And if you see something you like or that you like for a family member, remember that doing this is going to help make the world a little better for someone else. Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
Alrighty, thank you, Alexis. Not you, stupid thing.
Why don't you turn that off before the show? Honestly.
Tomorrow,
because if there's anything Mark's not going to turn off, it's the option of running that gag further into the ground.
That thing interrupts the show more than my dogs.
Tomorrow, hey, if you enjoyed this combination of Alexis and I, you get to hear more of us tomorrow, as we'll be doing a TV party tonight review for Lady and the Tramp live-action movie, brought to you by the exclusive province of the Disney Plus streaming app. And when you're done with that, Jesse and I, fresh off our award-winning review of Wu-Tang Clan.
Neither award nor winning.
Shut up. Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers. We're back on the metal tip. We are. I got Jesse's. I let Jesse out of the attic so he get to pick one album, and so he picked Rings of Saturn. Get him, jit. That's what we're calling it. It's capital G-I, capital D-I-M. So get him while you're hot. I don't know. Anyway, Rings of Saturn. We'll review that. And then Thursday, to go along with our source material for the Jeff Johns iteration of Teen Titans issues 1 through 12, we will be doing a TV party for Titans Season 2. This Saturday, myself and Robert Winfree will be doing commentary for UFC Fight Night, Overeem versus Rosenstruck. You can check out Jesse talking about going to the store to pick up some fresh Rosenstruck for the family. It's a very fine thing. Next week.
Not even pronouncing his name correctly, but I shouldn't be surprised.
Rosenstruck.
Well, he hasn't sung yet, so you got to get something from Mark's share of the bingo card.
Rosenberg.
There's been no reference to The Wire either.
No, that was yesterday. Well, sorry, that's this coming Monday. The Gotham Central Book 2, Jokers and Madmen. Oh my god, I went to like an hour-long tangent on how The Wire and this book were similar.
I'm sure you did.
It's fantastic. Anyway, speaking of fantastic, myself, Andrew Graham, and David Wright from our Canadian office will be talking The Crown Season 3. Not going to lie, not loving the woman playing the Queen.
Look, The Crown had an okay first season. It went downhill in the second, and it's only gone down further.
As I said, next week we'll have Gotham Central Book 2, Jokers and Madmen. We're taking Tuesday off so that I can watch Crisis on Infinite Earths. And then Wednesday, we're back in action with our last album review of the year. Our very last one. There shall not be another in 2019. Life of Agony. The Sound of Scars. Oh, scars! They're loud! The Sound of Scars, ladies and gentlemen. Life of Agony. And then Sean and I, on our one show for the month, we're going to dust off Long Road to Ruin. This is one that's several years in the making. We're finally getting to it. It's one I wanted to do when the show was actually running consistently. Long Road to Ruin, The Santa Claus, because it's that time of the season. And then finally, Chris Bailey. John War will be joining me Friday night to do commentary for Ortiz Jr. versus Solomon on DAZN, which, as we like to remind people, rhymes with calzone. And then really finally, not for play, but for real. On the 14th, myself and Robert Winfree will be doing commentary for UFC 245, Usman versus Covington. I'm excited about this one. I'm hoping he wears his MAGA hat to the ring, to the cage.
Probably not, but he will absolutely have it.
I hope he's got like a bag of MAGA hats that he just throws out of the cage at people. Why couldn't Trump go to this one instead of the Bad Motherfucker show? See, like, this one would be... I feel like this one would be more appropriate for him.
There was just some timing issue, I think. that just led to him being at that one instead of this one.
I wish,
the man is the president. He does have other things to do.
One or two. I feel like he should have walked Covington to the cage.
Nah.
Be great.
Plus,
the booing would have been even worse.
No, it really wouldn't.
Could you? Yeah, this is a UFC event.
Sure. The New York crowd in a UFC New York crowd, relatively hostile. The type of fans that are going to make the trek to Vegas to see this event, he'd have been 50-50.
I think Trump should have walked Covington to the cage to the sounds of "Hail to the Chief." That would have been glorious.
No, look, Covington's going to come out to Kurt Angle's theme again.
So are you saying it would have been 50% boos, 50% boo earns?
No. I mean, oh, God.
No.
I appreciate the joke. I really do.
And Robert Slugs.
I just have to mention, it's real easy to overlook that, approximately 50% of the country does in fact approve of the Trump administration.
And plugs.
All right. This last Sunday, the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast was back. There was no Jeff. He was feeling ill, so it was just me. Previewing the upcoming UFC on ESPN card that Mark referenced for this Saturday. Also talking about news. The UFC has signed Tony Ferguson. And
what's the name of the card?
UFC on ESPN 7. Overeem versus Rosenstruik.
Rosenstruik, that's what I said.
That is not what you said.
Striker. Ted Striker.
Anyway, so you can listen to my full preview of that card, such as it is. News of the week, including the UFC for the 5th time signing Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson. Please let this fight hold together.
This time it's for real, not for play.
Shut up, Ling Ling.
Thank you.
I'm hoping, as I said on Twitter, and this got several likes, they should freeze both Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson in carbonite. I want to say one of them actually liked that when they saw it, which I thought was funny.
Tony might have. He thinks carbonite's a real thing.
Terrific.
Also, the return of Conor McGregor, and the fact that he announced his return as a second sexual assault allegation has been levied against him. He's signed to fight Donald Cerrone in the main event, the presumptive main event at least, of 246 or 7. I can't remember which one. Other fights that got made, some fighters retired, just, basic news of the week. And this coming Saturday, I will have live coverage of UFC on ESPN 7 in the MMA zone of 411 Mania. And we'll be doing kind of live watch-along stuff with Mark. That'll be fun.
Hey, tell them about your crazy podcast that you did.
Pretty much everything I do has at least a degree of insanity to it. I
do
it.
My God.
I'm not a state person. What Mark is referencing more specifically, because there was no show proper for the Ground and Pound show a couple of weeks ago, I figured I'd fill the space with at least something rather than nothing.
That's what she said.
And this is why I had no inclination to actually engage with your stupidity. And released just a purely audio kind of a skill study on how Alexander Volkanovski beat Jose Aldo, and what that might tell us a little bit about his upcoming fight with Max Holloway. And let me be clear, I'm not bragging too much on the numbers about this because I don't care all that much about the numbers. If there's anyone listening getting something from it, I'm happy to talk. But that thing last time I checked had about 800 views on YouTube, which is far and away the most viewed thing I've ever put up onto that particular platform or been a part of on that particular platform. So if you're so inclined, give it a listen. Thank you to everyone who has. It's always appreciated that there's someone out there paying attention in whatever capacity to what I do. And I'm probably going to try to make that a slightly more regular feature. I'll release something on occasion that will be in that same vein.
Can you do one for Derek Lewis?
Oh.
Oh.
Okay, tell you what. I will. It's about 5 sentences long.
Perfect.
And I can't think of the last time Derek Lewis actually won a fight.
Well, he's got one coming up against Ilir Latifi, which is going to be gangbusters.
That's going to be so bad.
It's going to be awesome.
Look, you're going to enjoy it. It's still going to be bad.
This is true. All right, speaking of things that I enjoy but are also bad, that's the end of our show. I want to thank Alexis Hejna for joining us in all of our nonsense tonight. For Robert Winfree, I'm your mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. This has been Damn You, Hollywood. Be well, be safe, and behave.
Holiday tips and fun facts from Paul, Kristen, and Dexter at Total Wine & More.
Spice up your holiday season with a spiked hot cocoa. A rye bourbon should do the trick.
Looking for wine with a reindeer-inspired name for your gift exchange? You've come to the right place.
Impress your guests with one of our California Cabernets. We'll help you choose one that's lush and fruit-forward.
Whether you're entertaining or just bringing the wine, we'd love to share our always low prices and ridiculous selection with you this holiday. Now offering same-day delivery at TotalWine.com. Cheers!
Hey, Florida parents! Choose the Florida Healthy Kids Health Plan that gives your child more. With Simply Healthcare Plans, Inc., they get no or low-cost doctor visits, prescriptions, and vision care. Plus free extras, like $10 a month for over-the-counter items and more. Choose Simply at simplyhealthcareplans.com/Florida Healthy Kids. That's simplyhealthcareplans.com/Florida Healthy Kids. Click here to learn more about Simply.